Story 1. Nobody is talking about the elephant in the room. Basically, Donald Trump does not respect any contract, even the ones he agrees to. So why would any country believe any treaty or contract that they sign with the United States? Story 2. I feel like this is all happening so fast as part of a plan to push boundaries as far as he can to see what his administration can and can't get away with. I hope it levels off before it affects the lives of too many, but it's worrying to see how far it's gone in just 2 weeks with very little pushback. I think Republicans know the more they push, the more it will swing back on them in the 2026 elections and the 2028 presidential election, so they'll try and take as much as they can while they can. Time will tell how much of what they do is reversible when public sentiment shifts to wanting more progressive leadership. Story 3. He warned us that Harris would bring us a depression and World War III. Looks like he's already working on the first one. Maybe his staff will lock him in his office before he gets a chance to do the second. Story 4. A distinct possibility of a sharp economic shock that leaves all of us in poverty, with Donald Trump and Elon Musk among the most despised people in United States history. That's one of the optimistic scenarios. Story 5. Badly, but just for regular people. The rich will get richer and care even less about the little people. I'm just hoping he drops dead at some point. Vance is a coward. Story 6. Look at how many countries are now doing business with China that weren't before Trump's first term. That's all you need to know. He wrecked relations with all our allies just because. No reason other than he could. Somehow losing on the global market is supposed to make us stronger and better. Instead, we're being left behind. We went from a small startup to the most respected superpower on the world stage in less than 200 years. And we'll be back to just a small country in less time than that. Story 7. I'm wondering whether Trump may be forced to back down. In his public announcement yesterday, where he mentioned his introduction of retaliatory tariffs, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau indicated there would be more to come, which made me wonder whether Canada might refuse to supply the United States with oil and certain vital minerals that the US will find difficult and expensive to replace. The United States relies on Canadian cobalt, lithium, and other rare earths, as well as copper, aluminum, and more. Many of these are vital for new industries, including things Elon Musk needs. On top of that, Trudeau pointed out that Canada and Mexico are looking at each other as mutual supports in these times. It will be interesting to watch whether Trump folds and who he ends up scapegoating for his failures. Story 8. People, just read Project 2025. It's the plan. It spells it all out. The goals are a massive increase of presidential power, eliminating all expenses, and massively cutting the size of the government so you can transfer all that wealth to the top 1%. Elimination of all regulations on the wealthy and any systems that provide truth, such as scientific truth, accounting truth, and legal truth. In short, making the United States into Russia. You are on the express elevator to hell. Story 9. Just like Adolf in pre-Nazi Germany. You're already seeing government agencies that are being sabotaged like the United States Treasury. Good luck to all Americans. Story 10. Do you guys screen people for dementia before they're allowed to run for office or sociopathy? If not, I can foresee those being added to the criteria. Story 11. The United States is not going to be a legitimate leader of the free world if Trump keeps alienating the best friends of the United States. This is not what strength looks like. Further, United States tariffs will mean higher domestic prices and pressure on inflation. This will keep the Federal Reserve interest rate high. Other than that, it's just really hard to predict anything. Story 12. The last time the Republicans had control of the House, Senate, White House, and Supreme Court, the Great Depression happened. I expect history to repeat itself. Story 13. I predict a few assassination attempts. Where they are going to be from is anyone's guess. He has made quite a few people across the board angry. As far as the rest of the term goes, with his tariffs, he and this administration are going to be gaslighting the American public hard with, "We were never friends with Canada." That Canadians were always jealous of us and were out to get us. That Canadians were always our enemy. Some of you laugh, but go over to Breitbart's commenting section and it is already happening. Now, I don't know how many of those comments are from actual Americans, how many are from bots, and how many are from non-Americans posing as Americans to stir up conflict between the United States and Canada, but Again, it doesn't matter because it is happening. Canada, I am so sorry for this. Just stick with us. This individual is trying to tear us apart. We have had the best relationship with you and we still want that. You are our sibling and you will always be our sibling. We are stronger together. That's why countries like China and Russia are trying to break us apart. Our relationship with each other makes us a force to reckon with. Don't give up on us. Story 14. I'm really hoping he gets impeached before he ruins the harmony we have with other countries. I don't like Trump in the slightest. He definitely shouldn't be president. He's much too volatile. If any Canadians or Mexicans are reading this, I'm so sorry. Story 15. Depends. You're asking a very liberal-leaning website's users. So we all think what he's doing is not only unprecedented but insane and dangerous. Ask my boomer relatives. Trump might just be the best thing to ever happen to the United States, and that's not an exaggeration. Story 16. Both Turnip and Maersk are well known for having difficulty keeping their allies. I think it may not be more than a year or two until they absolutely cannot stand each other and have a horrible breakup. The fallout will be awful because of how deeply Maersk has injected himself into the entire federal apparatus. Story 17. Canadian here. We have enjoyed the longest and safest unguarded border in the history of the world, and that is invaluable and probably worth more than what most economists or politicians give us credit for. These tariffs are frustrating, and yes, there's going to be political volatility, but if we can manage to avoid having tensions heat up and this dynamic change as a result by the end of 2028, then I would consider this to be a win. But yes, there's all this tension right now across Canada, with people opting to avoid American products. It really is unfortunate because the Canada-United States dynamic is the envy of most group of 20 nations. Story 18. He has finally gotten his wish in a Twilight Zone kind of way, which is to have enough rope to hang himself. It's hard to describe how vapid his mind is without using superlatives. But now that he has the power to do what he wants, we all have to suffer through the process of his idiocy manifesting in waves of destruction to our own country. Everyone he appoints is an idiot. All of them will have a string of controversies and scandals, and Trump will try his hardest to use the might of the presidency to crush critics and dissent. But Wall Street and other powers that be will at some point turn against him as his dumb ideas wreak havoc on the economy. He will have to back down on some of his worst economic ideas and then take credit for saving the country from problems that he creates. But the worst thing is going to be the collateral damage that occurs when he uses the military to fight the Mexican cartels. Private military contractors, if they still exist, or Delta Force, Navy SEALs, and others will essentially be privateers in this effort, and certain people like Eric Prince will probably lobby in backdoor channels to make this happen so they can claim some of the wealth of the drug lords. Lots of their money is going to disappear, which is fine, except that the side effect of this whole thing is going to be turning our neighbor into an enemy. There is going to be massive racial tension which could completely ruin places like Los Angeles, especially when combined with the deportation efforts. In light of this, immigration and customs enforcement is just warming up, and in a couple of years they are really going to hit their stride. Trump will need scapegoats to take the blame for the economic chaos he is going to create. We all know he is a narcissist with an IQ of 45 and malicious intent, and his mobs of supporters are going to step in line when the economy sinks. As racist as they already are, they are going to be much worse soon. Also, there is no diplomatic solution to the cartel problem, and there is also no end goal. So what does this war look like? It's an endless fight with massive collateral damage to Mexico and our relations with them, which is going to spill into our country and poison major cities. Story 19. I see an economic collapse, coupled with the world's first trillionaire, when Elon Musk siphons our treasury to himself in order to improve government efficiency through business contracts. People of color and women being the hardest hit as companies lean more on automation and are allowed to discriminate. The government does nothing to protect us from job loss, and social safety nets are cut because reduced taxes lead to massive government budget deficit. The less well-off boomers starve to death or die from lack of medicine when their social security checks stop coming and the price of prescription drugs skyrockets. Hopefully I'm wrong, but with constantly rising prices and more layoffs and the wealthiest 1% siphoning more and more money to themselves, I think the breaking point will come faster than we expect. I thought Republican infighting would slow them down, But it seems the party that was fixated on the Constitution and law and order during Obama's tenure doesn't care about either of those things now. Story 20: Heart Attack. Vance and the technology-driven oligarchy will take over. They will collapse America as we know it. The wealth gap will be like that of a science fiction novel. They will obtain as much land as possible and build new perfect cities that will operate as their own microeconomies, basically creating slavery similar to what mining companies created in the 1910s and 1920s. Their currency will likely be digital, like cryptocurrency, so they can delete anyone who opposes their views. Unless we have a few individuals out there to ensure billionaires don't have too much power. Story 21. I see this ending similar to the second act of Revenge of the Sith. A small group stands up to him, they are made to be seen as evil traitors to the nation, and he ascends to unending power. Story 22. I'm watching Trump take a wrecking ball to the pillars of democracy, and on the front page of Yahoo News, they are telling me about Reese Witherspoon. It's like I'm living in an alternate reality. Story 23. An extreme theory, but I believe he is trying to push things to a snapping point so he can claim martial law. I think that will be our final inflection point. Story 24. I think a lot of Republican leaders are really underestimating the chances that they end up hanging from overpasses before this term is over. Not that the chances are high, but it's basically been 0% for most of United States history. Trump seems more like a dollar store Mussolini than a dollar store Hitler. Story 25. Trump is essentially a mad king now. And as much as the world would love to isolate the United States, they can't because our economy is just far too large to be ignored. And our military, not to mention our nuclear weapons, make us impossible to ignore. How will his term go? He'll bully other countries and they will bend the knee at least to some extent. But this comes at the cost of all soft power. The United States will have no influence beyond quid pro quos. Everything will be finite and transactional. Moreover, the United States will lose its leadership status. By refusing to sign on to or participate in global treaties, we will have no say in them. Countries everywhere will invest in doing end runs around the United States, forging deals that strengthen their economies while leaving us behind. They will look for ways to get away from relying on the United States dollar. The big question is what happens if Trump makes good on his desire to start conquering territory. Story 26. The British invade. King Charles is made president. The United States adopts the British pound. Tea is put back on boats in Boston and, as is the British way, no one will speak of the embarrassing couple of centuries or so. Story 27. Hopefully, it will isolate America and give us a reality check. I travel to South America frequently, and in the past 10 years, I have seen an increase in the number of Chinese companies and products. The path Republicans want to take us will only accelerate the increase of Chinese influence. Story 28. The rise of Asian powers over the United States was inevitable given the population, but it would have taken decades. And the American empire would have stayed strong for everybody's lifetime. Trump is accelerating this incredibly. The United States is going to be a shell of its former self within 20 years. Story 29. In my humble opinion, putting 25% across-the-board tariffs on all Canadian goods will go down in history as a blunder of gigantic proportions. The reason is simple. The United States just signaled to the world that they cannot be trusted as they are willing to turn on their closest ally in such a ruthless fashion. Without trust, how can you do business? Story 30. Russia's plan is to make America a scapegoat and isolate us from the rest of the world. Trump, having already been suspected of being a Russian plant, is doing a good job of that. The challenge is that his supporters will catch on at some point, and so Trump is also executing Russian plans to consolidate power and eliminate democracy. Once Congress is too weak to impeach, considering the Supreme Court of the United States is already in Trump's pocket, we'll see even bolder actions happening. I suspect Trump will start making enemies of all liberals after he gets done fully vilifying the far-left progressives. Story 31. Very poorly, and if the nation survives, we will get another Democratic president in a handful of years who will be heaped with blame for not fixing things fast enough by the same people that told us Trump and Harris were exactly the same. Story 32. Canada doesn't need anything the United States provides. We will be resilient and make things in Canada again. We will trade with the rest of the world moving forward. Story 33. Trump and his billionaire friends will have all the power and money. We will all be broke because the Supreme Court and Congress are a group of cowards. That's how the rest of his term will go. Story 34. Worse than most can imagine. This guy hates America. He hates everyone who did not vote for him and wants revenge against them, and he hates his own base because he thinks they are losers. That leaves a tiny sliver of people that he actually is okay with. I would not go so far as to say he likes anyone. Therefore, there will be no limits to his depravity. The only saving grace is that he is old and extremely lazy. Otherwise, we would be looking at millions of people killed, and we might still be anyway.